It's a new chapter, it's a new era, it's a new mindset. And making sure our alumni, our fan base, and Raider Nation are proud of what they see on the field.
Thank you for this opportunity. I promise you that I won't squander the moment. Make no mistake, I'm prepared for this position.
Ladies and gentlemen, Josh McDaniels, that son of a gun, is officially gone. We have more updates on what led to his firing, how Davante Adams played a critical role in getting rid of genius Josh once and for all. There are some more decisions that the Raiders have made regarding the quarterback position. We're gonna break this down. Guys, I am working on a full film right now that's gonna fully expose the Josh McDaniels era. This should definitely come out within the next 24 hours, so make sure you subscribe so you do not miss it. Apparently, Hunter Renfrow almost joined Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints right before the trade deadline, but it turns out Mark Davis and the Raiders did not answer the phone. After a while, they ghosted people on trades because they were too busy firing Josh McDaniels. It seems like the strategy for the Raiders and Mark Davis is to keep some of their star players, and it turns out Mark Davis only thinks the coaches are the problem, not the players, even though McDaniels kept telling us about execution.
That the reason they didn't trade, I guess Davante Adams would have been the big piece, although people called about Josh Jacobs, they called about Max Crosby. The reason why is that Mark Davis likes the players. And basically his choice was, I want to keep these players and win with these players. We just need a better coach and I guess general manager to do it.
So maybe that is why you hold on to Davante Adams. You hold on to Hunter Renfrow because I don't think it's Renfrow's problem. He hasn't been lighting it up. Seems like Mark Davis smartened up and made the wise decision. The genius Josh is the problem. Ian Rappaport is letting everybody know what led to Mark Davis's decision to officially fire Josh McDaniels in the middle of the night on Halloween. By the way, I had to be quiet last night. I've had some noise complaints from my roommate, so that's why I was speaking a little weird in the previous video. But it turns out Mark Davis had some player meetings and that led to his decision.
He's been having meetings over the course of the last week or so, dinners, meetings, etc., with some of the key team leaders, Davante Adams, Josh Jacobs.
So Mark Davis has been meeting for the past week or so with players like Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs. This makes sense now why Davante Adams has been so vocal and slamming the helmet down and pissed off. And it seems like Davante Adams was letting Mark Davis know what Raider Nation has been knowing for quite some time, that Josh McDaniels is the problem and they need to get rid of this guy in order to have success.
And kind of getting an understanding of like the culture, the locker room, helping him inform his decision that ended up, leading Josh McDaniels to get fired.
Remember back when all the people said that Davante Adams was happy to be with Josh McDaniels, was happy that Derek Carr was gone, and thought that the Raiders could get an upgrade? Turns out that was all bullshit. Turns out Davante Adams believed the same thing that a lot of Raiders fans like myself thought, that Josh McDaniels is a con artist and completely full of shit. And now we love our owner, Mark Davis, doing this shuffle. Yes, Mark, dance, Mark, dance, Mark. This guy has completely won over the fan base by making this decision. He's eating it in his wallet. He's losing over $40 million, but he doesn't care because he wants the fans to be happy about the football team that they love and respect. When you think about it, he makes enough money on visiting fans, so he really did this regardless of the pocketbook. The signs were in front of us the whole time when Mark Davis said, "What an asshole," on national TV, talking about Josh McDaniels next to his date right there. I wonder what kind of date Mark Davis is going to have at his upcoming game. I think we're going to see a much happier Mark Davis. I think we're going to see a much happier Davante Adams. Remember all those people who tried to say that this guy was not calling Mark Davis an asshole on TV? They tried to say he was saying, "Oh, we need to score." I think it's quite clear that Mark couldn't stand this freaking guy either. And Rich Gannon, the salty ex-Raiders quarterback who had some great years under John Gruden, but has always been so harsh on Derek Carr and literally said that Jimmy Garoppolo would be an upgrade, thinks that Josh McDaniels is a genius of a head coach. Well, this guy here now feels sorry for Josh McDaniels.
I'm disappointed for Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. They're out of work. It didn't work out.
They get paid regardless. They stole Mark Davis's money. Those scumbags will be perfectly fine. And honestly, I would not be surprised if they crawl back to New England on a discount deal.
I'm disappointed for, Davante Adams, who's throwing his helmet on the sidelines.
Why would you be disappointed for Davante Adams? He wanted him gone. He talked to Mark Davis about this. If anything, Davante Adams is stoked.
Disappointed for the fans.
Disappointed for Raiders fans. Raiders fans are ecstatic. This is Christmas early for Raiders fans. They could not hope for anything else. Some of them would have given up their nutsack for this to happen. I would have given up at least one testicle. For him to say that he's disappointed for the fans because we got rid of Josh McDaniels, to me just shows how out of touch Rich Gannon has become with the fans. And more Christmas miracles kept happening. Not only was Josh McDaniels fired, but Mick Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, the freaking son of Michael Lombardi, the guy who goes on YouTube, goes on TV, bitches about Raiders players who have a problem with Josh McDaniels, and says that I'm not just saying this because my son's the coach there and employed by McDaniels, but I think the coaching is doing a great job. Well, this guy's son is officially canned as well. Hopefully, Josh McDaniels can help out Mick Lombardi when he's filling out his paperwork at the unemployment office. So instead of offensive coordinator Mick Lombardi, Bo Hardgree, who is the QB coach, he's being promoted to offensive coordinator and play caller. I guess he has a good relationship with Aiden O'Connell. Obviously, if he's the QB coach, he's working with him on more of a daily basis. And yes, Aiden O'Connell, AOC, is the future. One of the first moves by the new interim head coaching staff through Anthony Pierce. We'll get into him in just a little bit. One of the first moves they decided to make was to have Aiden O'Connell not only start this week over Jimmy Garoppolo, but they are benching Jimmy Garoppolo indefinitely. Aiden O'Connell will be the Raiders starting quarterback for the entire season, and they personally believe, according to all these different reports, that Aiden O'Connell legitimately gives them the best shot to win over Mr. leading the NFL in interceptions, Jimmy Garoppolo. The Carr family has to celebrate a little bit and pour some salt on the wound. You got David Carr posting online, "That's not my problem anymore." You got Darren Carr, "Nothing to see here, moving on. Uh-oh, we're moving on to the future." Somehow Josh McDaniels blew it even worse this time than when he was popped for Spygate with the Denver Broncos and then fired. Josh McDaniels technically lasted longer as the Broncos head coach by about freaking 60 days than he did as the Raiders head coach. Isn't that pathetic? And here's the thing about why Antonio Pierce was chosen as the interim head coach. A lot of people are saying that he has respect from players across the roster, and that's because he's a former player, former linebacker with the New York Giants, and a lot of people respect this guy, even though he's only had college coaching experience prior to getting this NFL coaching gig as a linebacker coach for the Raiders. Many people believe he can give the Raiders a spark similar to Rich Bisaccia in 2021. You see this picture here, Josh Jacobs hanging out with Antonio Pierce, team chemistry. People are taking note that the players love this guy. It seems like Pierce was not in love with Jimmy Garoppolo, and that is why Aiden O'Connell is starting, and that is why this is the first move he has made, which is to bench Jimmy Garoppolo indefinitely, like we talked about a bit earlier. But the key thing here is that the Raiders are stuck with Jimmy G's contract due to Josh McDaniels restructuring his contract after he passed the physical after previously failing the physical. The Raiders are going to be on the hook for about $11.2 million guaranteed in 2024. When you take a look at the contract in 2025, they're also going to be on the hook for another 12 to 13 million. So it's really going to be like 12 million a year being eaten up for Jimmy G over the next 2 years. Unfortunately, Darren Waller was never going to get his revenge game on Josh McDaniels. We know that Josh McDaniels traded this man away on his honeymoon, and then Waller's wife mocked McDaniels on social media. But Waller has a hamstring injury, so he's not going to be available in this upcoming Giants versus Raiders game. And maybe that's the best for everybody, because I think Darren Waller probably wants the new Raiders to win it. The Athletic of Tashawn Reed was talking about some potential head coaching candidates for the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders are not going to be able to interview any head coaching candidates until the season is ended, until the playoffs have ended. That's how the new rules are. Obviously, you know my number one candidate is for John Gruden to come back and take over as the Raiders coach. We know his lawsuit is going on right now, and he's going to have a court date set up against the NFL. We're not exactly sure the timeline on when that will be resolved, but hey, if it does get resolved before the end of this season, maybe he could be back. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But if we are putting Gruden aside, you have Tashawn Reed talking about Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. He has been hyped up ever since he changed that Lions franchise on the offensive side of the football, and he's one of the top head coaching candidates for this upcoming season. You also have Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins. obviously the Dolphins have a very creative offense led by Mike McDaniel. That's the McDaniel that the Raiders should have hired. And you also have Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald. Even though the Ravens defense moved on from some pieces like Calais Campbell, their defense is first in points per game, and they're having a great year this year. And Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, that's a possibility. Brian Flores, though, also has a lawsuit situation with the NFL, so that's sort of a sticky situation similar to John Gruden. And obviously Jim Harbaugh was somebody who the Raiders were looking into as a head coach before hiring Josh McDaniels. The Raiders never officially interviewed Harbaugh. However, the Raiders would likely consider him this time around. He does have a sign stealing scandal going on right now in Michigan, and any punishment he has with the NCAA, according to Deshaun Reed, will likely be honored by the NFL. Another guy who would be interesting and is John Gruden adjacent is defensive coordinator Raheem Morris. He was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive coordinator when John Gruden was there. Lately, he's done a good job with the Rams under Sean McVay, so who knows if he can have an opportunity with the Raiders. I am so happy that Josh McDaniels is finally gone. I honestly did not believe it was going to happen. I was pessimistic. I was depressed. I was disappointed and thought Mark Davis was going to make us deal with this until his contract expired, but he pulled the plug and I'm stoked. We got a lot of shit on this channel over the past few years criticizing Josh McDaniels, breaking down every single mistake he made in the game and the offseason. And even though people said some nasty things, told me to stop being negative, I always knew that this day would come when Josh McDaniels would be fired and no longer the head coach of the Raiders. Let me know if you're as happy as me in the comments below, and be on the lookout for the film on Josh McDaniels dropping within the next 24 hours. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.